It's an absolutely bonkers day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Hasbro has just released its Q4 earnings reports, and Magic the Gathering, for the first time in a long time, is on the decline, failing to meet its previous earnings. On top of that, we finally got some information about the upcoming Tarkir set in the form of a leak.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings! Owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another juicy installment of Mega Magic News. We got two big items to talk about, the Tarkir leak and what's going down with Hasbro's financials. Magic the Gathering has been a huge money generator for them, so for them to be on the decline is a very startling situation to find ourselves in. Before we talk about that though, just want to let you know, for those of you who are interested in the Black Lotus silver coin, the sales of it have gone live today, so there will be a link down pinned in the top of the comment section if you've been waiting for your chance to grab that coin. Now, I know you're probably like me and you've been waiting for a taste of Tarkir. Is it going to be like Aether Drift, where they have a bunch of weird nonsense jammed into it? Or is it going to be along the lines of what we know as more traditional Magic the Gathering? Well, I am happy to announce that from the leak of the Commander decks and the one card we have to take a look at as well, it appears we're going to be going down the traditional avenue. So that might actually be part of the reason we haven't heard that much about it. On that note, there will be a big announcement today that might have already happened by the time this video goes live, where Wizards is going to dump Tarkir information on us, plus they're going to reveal the lineup for the rest of the year. So buckle up. Today happens to be the 20th anniversary of Avatar, and it's virtually guaranteed that that's what's going to be the next Universe Beyond that we're getting at the end of the year. So yip for that, boys. Now, let's dive in. Let's take a look, first of all, at the Commander decks for Tarkir. So we have the 5 clans, right? You've got Temur Roar, which is ramp and big dragons. Get out a bunch of mana, get some big fat dragons. That totally works for me. We've got Jeskai Striker. This one is extra spells, and then it talks about a flurry of spell abilities, but really it just feels like extra spells twice. The descriptions on these decks don't really say that much. Put in a bunch of lands, cast some dragons, right? Go ahead, cast a bunch of spells, cast a bunch of spells. Then we've got Abzan Armor, and this is a bunch of defender creatures. So this is a weird beast to me, right? Are they going to have cards that say, hey, your creatures who have defender can attack as if they didn't? My guess is yes. And they're going to have things that switch toughness and power in terms of probably creatures saying, hey, I can do damage based on my toughness. So for anybody who likes the old school wall decks, that was once a thing if you weren't around in the beginning of Magic. They had wall decks where they just inherently couldn't attack, but then there were cards that would make it so your walls could rise up and smash people down. So this is a wall deck. Then you've got Mardu Surge, which is a make a bunch of tokens, sacrifice them for value style concept, and that deck is bringing back Zurgo. So we're seeing a very familiar face in that regard. And then you've got the Sultai deck, which is a zombie reanimator deck. Fill up your graveyard, bring them on back. Ultimately, the ideas behind these decks don't seem that crazy. Wizards of the Coast tends to play it safe and make the same style of commander decks over and over and over. There are a few things to note of interest. One is the fact that we get 5 commander decks with this set, which is 20% more than normal. And with some sets, they're actually only releasing 2 commander decks like they did with Aether Drift. So we've got 5 different options. The most interesting part to me is the fact that every single one of these combinations here of dragon and individual on the cover represent 5 different spirit dragons that are brand new to Magic. So what's the story behind them? Are they somehow connected to Ugin the Spirit Dragon? I don't know, but I'm super excited to see what looks like from the surface. Straight up, we're going to cast spells, sling swords, ride dragons, and even when you look at the bundle packaging, which was also leaked, you can see Spirit Dragon on Spirit Dragon fighting. So big creatures with crazy magical powers, dragons filling the sky. It looks like Tarkir is not going to be sullied by being turned into some other random property. Although I wouldn't be surprised if they had some kind of tie-in with other IPs. Like, for example, How to Train Your Dragon apparently is something that's coming out around this time or has just come out. I don't know because I'm not into that, but ultimately that could easily be a tie-in. Now, we have a card to look at from the set as well. This one wasn't leaked. This one was officially spoiled by Wizards in the last 24 hours. And that's all they've spoiled aside from some key art. So take a look at Narset Jeskai Waymaster. 1 white, 1 red, 1 blue for a 3/4 legendary human monk. At the beginning of your end step, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw cards equal to the number of spells you've cast this turn. So it's a weird variation on Storm that cares about you basically casting a bunch of spells to be able to draw a bunch of cards. And so if, let's say, your Storm action doesn't go off, this will be there to refuel your hand. Oh, did you actually stop my main thing? Did you manage to stifle my Storm trigger? Whatever it is, I can rebuild with this. And on top of that, if you just have no cards in your hand, you draw a card, play it. At the end of your turn, you can choose to discard your empty hand, and then you get to draw a card for the spell you cast. So 3 mana, 3/4 card drawing engine ultimately doesn't seem too bad at all. So that rounds out everything we have to say about Tarkir up until now. But like I mentioned previously, they're going to be doing a big announcement today with more information, and some more might trickle out over the weekend. But my plan is to do a live stream tonight over on my live stream channel covering all the information that's come out about Tarkir and the announcement of Avatar and anything else that Wizards of the Coast covers in this big MagicCon announcement that they're making, right? So like I said, some of that information might actually already be out by the time you see this video. But there's too much to talk about right now for me to wait for all that and cram it in, because we haven't even touched on what's going on with Hasbro's earning reports. So Hasbro has released their Q4 or fourth quarter earning reports. They put these out every 3 months, basically to keep the investors up to date with what's going on with the company. And they are very enlightening because the company can say a lot of things. Hasbro can come along and say a lot of things to their investors and to us in a lot of different places. But when it comes to earning reports, they absolutely have to be upfront and actually give genuine numbers and information. And there are ways for them to kind of manipulate what's going on with the quarterly reports. Like we actually saw that last year with Thunder Junction. Thunder Junction got a surprise early release where they basically shipped it out to distributors and stores earlier than anticipated so that they could squeak it into the previous quarter and end up, basically going, oh, look, these numbers are better than projected because Markov Manor did so poorly and they're scrambling. So they basically pull different kinds of tricks. And actually looking at the rescheduling of the Magic sets and how we were originally supposed to get Lorwyn. We were going to get Lorwyn around this time, but now Lorwyn's been kicked down the road until 2026. And I expect when you combine the fact that they got rid of Lorwyn, the fact that they've been completely silent on Tarkir, right? We've been banging the drum about Final Fantasy for the last X number of days where the hype is going crazy. And actually, as a quick aside, for those of you who are super hyped about Final Fantasy, I want you to understand something. This is going to be a standard set release, which means all these products are going to be available for a considerable amount of time. So don't get taken advantage of by scalpers that are making these crazy listings and you're just afraid, oh, I went to try and go and order some of this stuff and it's all out of stock. Wizards hasn't even really started to stock this stuff. It's not coming out until June. Understand that. The Tarkir set we're talking about comes out in like 6 weeks. But Final Fantasy isn't coming out for like 4 months, and it's going to be in standard for 3 years, and they're most likely going to print the Final Fantasy stuff for at least 2 years, and that will actually tie in to the Hasbro financial stuff we're going to talk about as well. But this is just a warning to let you know, don't get taken advantage of. Don't worry, there's going to be plenty of Final Fantasy cards to go around. But anyways, Final Fantasy has been eclipsing Tarkir. Wizards has said nothing about it, which says to me they don't have much faith in how well this is going to sell, which is really disheartening. Aether Drift, the Vroom Vroom Beep Beep set gets a bunch of attention. Final Fantasy gets a bunch of attention. And Tarkir has languished until now. We're going to lean, obviously, into Tarkir spoiler season leading up to the set, and things will be normal from here. But there has never been a Magic set in recent history that has been as hidden as Tarkir is. And it's not hidden because they're trying to keep it under wraps and it's an excellent secret, right? They spoiled cards, or spoiled concepts, I should say, from Edge of Eternities, the space set that we're getting out in August. They told us like nothing about Tarkir whatsoever. So all that says to me is they have some genuine fears about how the financial setup's going to work in terms of the money they're going to generate in the beginning of the year. So they went, we got to kick Lorwyn out of here. We don't have faith in our ability to deliver that as a reasonable product. And instead, we need an extra Universe Beyond set this year to juice up the numbers. And that makes sense to me because Wizards of the Coast, for the first time, is coming along and going, Magic didn't make more money than last year, which is wild. If you haven't been around for a considerable amount of time, you might not know this, but back in like 2017, around that time frame, that was when they installed, the guy who's in charge of Hasbro used to be in charge of Wizards of the Coast. And around 2017 is when he came into it, or maybe slightly earlier. But that was the time frame where basically Wizards of the Coast said, we're going to double profits. Hasbro said, you got to double profits in 5 years. And Wizards of the Coast managed to do it through cutting card quality, cranking prices, not in a way that was good for us, but they managed to reach those goals, right? So again, they were given the mandate. Now you've got to go up 50% in 3 years, which is almost the same thing, right? If you go 100% in 5 years or you go 50% in 3 years, that's roughly the same. So they've been given these doubling mandates and they pulled it off year after year. They talked about the high margins that they would make from Wizards of the Coast, and it was buoying the company up. But for the first time in years, Wizards of the Coast is coming out and being, okay, so Magic actually, the revenue is declining. Now, it's not massively declining, right? We're only talking about somewhere between 1 to 7%, depending on a number of different factors. But either way, when you look at it, Magic the Gathering for the first time isn't kicking in the doors, bringing in the money. And when you look at what Hasbro is saying in the Q4 reports, they're saying basically this is down because Lord of the Rings is not being sold anymore. So we don't have this buoying up our profits. So they're literally turning around to the investors and going, this Universe Beyond product, now that we don't have it, that's the reason that our money is down. So that's the reason we're seeing 3 Universe Beyonds this year, right? You've got Final Fantasy, Spider-Man, and the to be announced today Avatar set. And those 3 are meant to go, hey, come on in from outside, bring all your money, right? We're basically trying to do the same thing that we did with Lord of the Rings. So Hasbro is doing a little bit better overall as a company than was projected, but understand those projections were already negative. So Hasbro just came in at like, so we're only down like 17% revenue overall when we expected it to be a bigger decrease. But ultimately, they're still heading downwards because they have the albatross around their neck of their entertainment division where they had to sell that off at a massive loss. And that's what makes the whole fact that they're going to try and make one, they're trying to make a Magic the Gathering movie. They're trying to make 2 Magic the Gathering TV shows, Dungeons and Dragons TV shows, all of this stuff, while also having eaten a massive loss on that entertainment stuff. It basically accounts for half of the revenue lost. So you've got a situation where the only thing that is really leaning in Hasbro's favor right now is the fact that Monopoly Go made a bunch of money. That's actually what stopped Wizards' profitability not tanking all the way downwards. Wizards of the Coast is doing just okay and treading water because of Monopoly Go, of all things. So what's going to happen going on from here is Magic the Gathering is going to get squeezed harder. The prices are going to move upwards, and the Universe Beyond stuff that's going on, Final Fantasy is going to introduce higher prices for the first time ever for a standard set. The prices that we were used to paying for things like that Lord of the Rings set that came out, Modern Horizons, the remastered sets, that's now being applied to standard sets. And understand that it's not just going to be Universe Beyond sets. They've already started to put out feelers and try and see if people would be willing to pay upwards of $400 for collector booster boxes of the Lorwyn set that's coming next year. So Magic prices are absolutely going to head upwards. They've got to squeeze harder, and they are basically trying to make it appear to the investors like everything is all good. But with Magic's revenue declining like this and no longer having a big margin push, plus the fact that Hasbro is suffering in different areas like toy sales, they are not doing very well. And so what's going to happen is I predict Hasbro most likely in like the next 6 months is going to do another fat trimming. If you remember when they announced that whole Entertainment One debacle and sold it off, they're like, okay, look, we lost all this money, but don't worry, we got plans to sell stuff. Because remember, this is all about making sure that investors don't get spooked and pull out their money. It's like, no, everything's going to be all good. Yeah, we got rid of the entertainment thing, and yeah, we lost a bunch of money on that, but we're going to tighten up, we're going to cut down on our inventory, so we're not going to have nearly as much product kicking around. We're going to get rid of product lines that aren't working, and they're giving similar language kind of now. So it looks like ultimately what's going to happen is in the next 6 months, they're going to look at some divisions and start to give people the boot. And before, I would have said that Wizards of the Coast would basically be overlooked in this regard because they're pulling in enough money that, hey, don't mess with what's working, just squeeze it for more juice. But now that Magic the Gathering has made less than it did previously, that opens up the door for them to go, you know what? Maybe we can find some fodder to trim, which is brutal, honestly. Like people are gonna end up losing some jobs over this as Hasbro attempts to keep the line moving ever upwards, because we live in this insane world where it's expected that the profits will ever increase, not just remain the same. Like Magic the Gathering is making barely less than last year, but that's not okay. That is not okay from the perspective of stockholders and the upper management of the company. So they absolutely will be taking moves to try and get that going back upwards again, equaling higher prices for us, probably even lower quality if that's even possible, because the Magic card quality right now is genuinely abysmal. I have seen people posting pictures. Check it out. Here's my new Secret Lair bonus card. It's the Seven Dwarves. And from the picture, which is even a bit grainy, you can see the chipped edges along the cards. Wizards' quality has gotten so bad that game stores have changed their grading systems, and now near mint cards can include damage along the edges, some scratches. Like, it's absolutely astounding how much damage Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro specifically pushing them has done to the game in terms of absolute quality, right? Cards come out of the pack feeling gritty and awful. We were talking about that last night in my live stream. You've got situations where the foils are warping at light speed. My buddy cracked open his little promo at the pre-release and he's just like, look at this, man. It basically is, it's almost like a Mexican jumping bean in his hand. So the quality can't really get much lower. The prices, however, can spiral ever upwards. So I expect to see some more Magic price increases. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to even inch up the price on Secret Lairs. Didn't they do that with the Marvel ones? Instead of being like $30 for the regular, it was $40 for the regular and $50 for the foil. That might be me misremembering. So there's theoretically, it could be that they haven't done that yet. But either way, Magic the Gathering was something they touted to the investors as a very margin-rich product. They are saying that they're losing money because their Universe Beyond property license has expired, so you can see this leading to more Universe Beyond products being clamored for. The shareholders going, why aren't you doing more things like Lord of the Rings? So I wouldn't be surprised to see in 2026 for them to go, instead of 3 Universe Beyonds, we're doing 4 Universe Beyonds. And then it just goes from there to the point where we could have a standard that's all universes beyond. When you take into account the fact that that's what they point to for their profits, and take into account the fact that they didn't even want to tell us about Tarkir, and Tarkir actually feels like genuine original Magic the Gathering, it doesn't bode well for the future of Magic the Gathering's actual flavor, its actual identity. How are you supposed to make shows and movies off of a property where you're literally just jamming everything you can into it without growing your own world anymore, right? Like Edge of Eternities is going to be the only other in-universe set we get this year, and that's a complete space-based set. So that is like Universe Beyond Light, what is generic store version. Mom, I want this set. Oh, we've got that at home. I want Star Wars. We got Edge of Eternities at home. It's that kind of a vibe. So ultimately, things are looking pretty rough in that regard, and Hasbro is definitely going to put more squeeze on Wizards of the Coast. So that wraps up all the news I have to talk about for now. But like I said, tonight I'll be doing a live stream where we go over all of the information that gets released today at MagicCon. Thanks for coming by and hearing what I have to say. Big shout out to my patrons, and I will see you all, my friends, in the next video.